Let's take a little look here as we look at the technology leaders. And I want to give you a sense for our short-term cycle analysis in 6 of these stocks and why it points to the fact that there probably is not a lot more time in this downside wave for these stocks to fall, and maybe the market, as they are, of course, an influence on the market. Let's take a look here at Facebook. So the first thing we're going to show you is that we're looking at cycle analysis. These are harmonic families, as we call it. This is like music, the harmonics that you see right in here. There's a dominant and a minor that you see very clearly. And each of these dominants are made up of 2 minor cycles. In this chart, there are some that are made up of 3 or 4, depending on the individual chart. This is an art form, actually, cycle analysis, and this is all done manually. So there's a lot of study and research that comes into doing this type of analysis. I want you to note the minor fluctuations that you can see and how that shows up right over here in the chart, right over here. And now we are in this first minor cycle right there. This first minor cycle has a positive configuration. What that means is that, well, the low is higher than the low right over here. You can see this one and this one. These are all positive configurations, and this is the positive momentum on the slim ribbon. That tells you the likelihood that the stock is going to continue on the upside as you see that kind of momentum. Here's an example where you had a upside move, and then you had another one right over here, and it just barely took out this high and then came down and had its correction. This one took out the high pretty significantly and then pulled down over here. And then you can see that this is kind of lining up to, we're going to call it about 3 to 6 days in this declining phase that it's in. And you can see it's gotten down to just under the support but bounced right back up over there. So this says, Facebook, that it doesn't really have a lot more downside. Probably going to come down and then give you a bounce on here, and then there's a lot of risk over here coming into the end of September, beginning of October. Again, like I said, a lot of potential volatility coming up during this period as we move towards the election. So Facebook looks like it's got, we'll call it 3 to 6 days before this downside movement is over with, and then it tries to get back to the upside. Let's look at some of the other tax FANG stocks, and you'll get just a feeling about the consistency. We call this cycle synchronicity. Here is Apple, and Apple, you can see it has a little longer cycles than what we're looking at in Facebook. And this one gets down to the buy zone, momentum still positive, as you can see right over here. And now this looks to us like it has about 2 to 4 more days in here. So Apple in this very, very depressed downside movement over here, down nearly 8 on the day to about 111, rebounds all the way back up to 119, as you could see. But it looks like it's going to test 111 again before this is over with, and then get a rally towards this resistance area over here. Again, if you look at this right over here, I can just look at this timing, and it says probably rally, but then pull back again into the middle of October. A little bit different timing than I showed you in Facebook. Let's look at Amazon, AMZN. And you can see in here a similar thing. Timing in here, well, got a little bit lower than we had estimated, but not bad. And now it looks like another 2 to 4 days on the downside. So this is all pointing to, declining into next week and then getting another rally in there. Again, we have these positively configured cycles. They all look really strong in there. And this one didn't get down to the cycle support yet, though it's getting close, you could see. And usually when you get under the 78.6%, which is this line right over here, that is a warning that the next rally is not going to get you back to the high. So while the normal projection would be back to the high, we're going to be putting in resistances in here that we believe it will fail, and then again move down again into the beginning of October. You can begin to see the idea of the synchronicity of these patterns, declining for maybe another 2 to 4 days, rallying up again, and then coming down into October. That's a look at Amazon. We'll just stay in these techs, FANG stocks. We'll look at Microsoft right here. Microsoft has multiple cycles in there that you can see. They're a bit out of phase. And Microsoft looks like that low is basically in right now. Maybe it has another couple of days, come down and test these lows, and then move up. This actually got very close to this also, below the 78.6, which I didn't put in here. And that means that the next rally is likely not to get as high and then come down again. This points to beginning of October. So it looks like rallies into October and then coming down again, and likely going to give you a lot of trade when we look at that Microsoft. We're going to be putting some sell zones in here for when we get a bounce. Google, again, we're going to be looking at synchronicity. This has multiple time frames. Again, the dominant cycle and the minor cycle. We are just ending this dominant cycle here. We're going to call it 2 to 4 days and then moving up again. So you can see the clarity in here when you look at these stocks. They are beautifully aligned. And again, we're going to look for a short-term low in the coming week, and then getting a rebound, and then coming again down into, well, this is end of September, maybe beginning of October in the Google market. And one more we'll look at, this absolutely monster Tesla, which got the valuations that are just beyond belief. That's the wrong stock, TSLA, I wonder. And you can see in here, well, Tesla's got a little different patterns. We don't see a clear minor cycle in there. And you see this move down pretty significantly into the bottom of this support right around 364. As it had this very, very big decline in here. And then we're going to look for some rally into this area. Again, momentum still positive in there. And so somewhere in here is a sell, and it's likely to come down again below this level over here into what date? Well, into the end of September, beginning of October. So that's what we have. We have these 6 stocks that look like just fantastic synchronicity when we look at them. And this is the Tesla. I wanted to show you the weekly so you get a little feeling on our weekly analysis. Also, as it gets down towards these support areas, and this says some rallies and then coming down into December, which might be the picture of what we see in the whole market in there. See the engulfing pattern in here, the huge rejection from the fib extension zone right up over there, the 78.6 it tags, and then comes right down. You can get an idea of the kind of volatility we're expecting as it probably trades up into this white space back and forth. So a good look at what weekly cycle analysis looks like in Tesla. And that's the picture as we looked at these markets, the tech leaders on the short term, a lot of synchronicity that we see in there, and a very, very strong likelihood that a short-term bottom is going to be made in the next week, a rebound, and then potentially more trouble ahead late September, beginning of October.